Welcome back to The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Farrier. Dick and Mitchell's dilemma to say yes or no to a request from the United States to place military assets at the Morris Bishop International Airport. It is probably one of the most anticipated news that the country, the Caribbean, maybe even the world, is waiting to hear from Grenada's Prime Minister. The government said they were considering, but they are taking their time considering, asking lots of questions of the United States government and getting answers to those questions, but no decision being announced yet. But a lot of people are weighing in on this very sensitive matter. One of those is Kent Joseph. Kent Joseph is a founding member of the National Democratic Congress, which Deacon Mitchell now leads. He's also a former parliamentarian. He was a senator in Grenada's upper house. He's a former general secretary of the National Democratic Congress, even a former chairman of the leadership committee. He was part of that committee, which also helped in the leadership search for Deacon Mitchell and several other leaders of the National Democratic Congress before that. He's joining me now to talk about the radar issue and to give his thoughts and opinions on this decision that the Grenada government is called upon to make. Welcome to the program, Kent Joseph.
Good day, Calistria, and good day to Carib Update listeners and viewers. This is my first time in many years that I've been on a program of such. Probably decades I've been in front of a camera.
But it is our pleasure. We're happy to have you here. It is always good to hear from the elders and the founders. So, you know, I saw you at the Parliament. I had the opportunity to meet you at the last Parliament sitting that ended prematurely. You were there, and I got the impression you were there anticipating that you would hear something from the Prime Minister, from the leadership of the country on the radar issue. Is that why you were there? Because I had not spotted you in Parliament at a Parliament sitting for many years.
Correct, Calistria. I specifically am physically challenged in many areas, but I thought it was necessary that I go to that Parliament sitting to really witness firsthand what the results of the sitting, and particularly to hear the decision that I think all Grenadians and people throughout the Caribbean anticipated and was promised by the Prime Minister, real decision or request from the American government to him, to Grenada in particular, with regards to, I don't want to say it's military assets at the airport. I believe it has to do with security assets with regards to radar equipment, specifically for the region. So I would not want to say it's military assets.
If this was your decision to make, given the context, given the dynamics and all that pertains, where do you stand on this issue, the request by the United States?
Well, Calistria, I've been involved as a political activist, community activist, from since of the age of 18, and I'm now 74 years old. So I have quite a bit of experience, and I have studied the history of politics within the region. And I'm Trinidadian by birth, and that Grenadian, as I always tell people, by heart. So I have seen and understood, and I understand politics from a grassroots level and from experience. It is something you can learn at school. And I would say that it is 42 years to date almost that the United States military came into Grenada on the 25th of October. And at this time, to this date, there were a lot of gunfire, a lot of assets have been used against the revolutionary short-lived military council that was involved in the execution of Prime Minister Morris Bishop. And I would have been one of those who supported the revolution. And unfortunately, the overthrow of Matthew Gary. I say unfortunately because I
Unfortunately, you
think
say unfortunately. That's
yes,
interesting.
yes, yes, yes. Yes, because by the bullet and not by the ballot.
Mm.
Because once you once democracy is approached by the bullet, it fractures democracy. So I would have hoped I was a few years older than the younger cadres, and about 2 or 3 years older than the older ones. You know, like Morris and Bernard, they probably would have been around 80. Uh, but I felt if at that time, the joint group who had won 6 seats against the GLP, the People's, I think was I can't remember the joint group of GNP and New Deal Movement, and they won 6 seats. If they had waited another term, they would have won the elections against the GLP.
But the excuse that's given, the excuse that I've heard, because I missed all of that in terms of actively being aware of what was going on and was not even around for some of those issues. But the excuse I keep hearing is that, well, Gary kept stealing the election, so we had to move because we would not win. But then I hear others saying the very same thing you said, that they had just had some patience, that the people, they had become so strong and people had become so disillusioned with Sir Eric Gary that the election would have gone their way had they waited, and things may not have gone as badly south as it went.
I am one of those, as I indicated. I was among many people was very glad to see the back of Eric Marty, Gary, who I knew personally as a young person, because of his excesses. But Gary in his younger days was the first revolutionary, and was
1951.
coined, yes, and was coined to be a communist by the colonial masters. So in his early days, I mean, he was a hero. I mean, Gary faced the jails. I think that either between 45 or 51 times they jailed him for being an activist. And I mean, he pursued and he persevered. I don't think the members of the NGM went to jail many times. I mean, they were beaten sometimes, and but Gary persevered, and eventually he won the
You
he won
won.
the election.
And so because we have to move along, the communist of 1951 became the freedom fighter and the hero of the people, and then became the dictator.
That's right.
And that's the nature of things. And so
That's
today,
power corrupt. Power corrupts.
and today we are facing another decision, the United States seeking to have a presence, a strong presence here again. People say they've got military, they've got radars here and there on the island already. If you were the prime minister, what would you do?
As I was indicating before, based on my personal experience over the years and what transpired with the knowledge of the birth and the death of the revolution from within, its own inclusion. And when Grenadians were under house arrest for how many days, a majority of Grenadians welcomed the United States of America, whether it came as an intervention or rescue mission or
But
invasion.
that was then. Okay, Grenadians were happy to see the Americans because they were happy to see the back of Cord and the others whom they felt held responsibility for murdering their great revolutionary leader. So that was a different set of circumstances. Are we
Yes.
applying the same set of circumstances then to what is happening now? Grenada is not in a state of war or any kind of turmoil. We are simply a democratic nation struggling to make it economically, and we are being forced into a situation that no right-thinking person believes is even about drug interdiction, but about regime change. So do we find justification for saying yes way back 42 years ago? I mean, shouldn't we
Are you,
look at
are you,
the
are you,
dynamics
are you
now?
asking about my opinion? As you asked, you want to hear my opinion. And I said, based on the experience and based on looking at historical facts, and we are not in anybody backyard, but the United States of America front yard. So we must be realistic. I remember years ago when NDC was in power and John Purcell had won the seat in Carriacou. The United States requested a radar system to be put on PT Martinique. And of course, I understood what it was all about, but because of the ideology and coming out of the revolution, that a lot of us, including myself, went to the streets and said no because it was alleged to be a base, an American base there. But we must all understand, and it has to be from a form of education and history, that first of all, the United States of America is the most powerful nation, not only in the world, but more so in this hemisphere. And that's realistic. So let's look at Trinidad and Tobago and the Prime Minister Kamala Persad when she indicated that Trinidad and Tobago is in a state, basically, that's what she meant, a state of war. And it's true. So she would have had to. The decision that she has made, I agree with her, to welcome the United States of America because of the crime rate, because of the security, lack of security. And I'm a supporter of the PNM government. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. PNM all my early days and up to now. But I support, but you got to understand that I'm quite sure that the former Prime Minister knew that the United States of America, and I have certain proof personally that all the apparatus, whether military or surveillance or for narcotics, that Trinidad and Tobago adhered and agreed that these systems would be put into Trinidad and Tobago more so for the crimes and for the narcotics and for the what's been happening over the last 15 or 20 years in Trinidad and Tobago. All mostly because of drugs coming from the South American countries, coming from Venezuela. I have to say all these things before I answer because I have to put it in context. So I would look at that. We have St. Vincent and we have Grenada, which are closest to Trinidad and Tobago. Right? We have Guyana with their problems with Venezuela. Are we not going to support Guyana? Are we not going to support Trinidad and Tobago, both with regards to having a protective world power? Who are we going to ask for help? Are we going to ask the Russians? Are we going to ask the Chinese? Because Venezuela has always been an aggressive nation. It has nothing to do with ideology. And we are a democratic society, and the English-speaking Caribbean countries together, more so together, the majority of their people and their families live in North America, dependent on barrels, dependent on monies coming from North America. And look, I am not, as a matter of fact, I support the United States of America. I have a problem, as many people, with regards to the present President of the United States of America. More so, particularly so, with how he has been complicit with regards to how the Zionists killed Palestinians. Every day I wear a Free Palestinian shirt. I abhor the way that the President of the United States and even the other president before that were complicit in supporting arming the Zionists in Israel, because I'm a human being, but also I have the lineage of the Palestinian blood in me, apart from the African blood. So I'm not a supporter of the present president of the United States, but I'm a supporter of the United States of America because the present president will not be there for long, but the
So,
United States of America will be there forever, and hopefully Grenada and the Caribbean. No, this part of the Caribbean, you know, the Prime Minister of Barbados or Antigua can say, well, no, from an ideological standpoint, or could say, yes, we all want to live in a zone of peace, but is Trinidad and Tobago living in a zone of peace? When you look at the proximity of Grenada to Trinidad, and you look at the proximity of St. Vincent to Trinidad, and you look at the population of Trinidad and Tobago, they are close to 500,000 Grenadians and Vincentians that are part of the population of Trinidad and Tobago. And that's factual. So whatever happens to Trinidad and Tobago should affect us. It may not affect Jamaica. It may not affect Antigua. But we are tied with Trinidad and Tobago. And if you notice what initially the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, when asked the question, if he had to make a decision with regards to making the decision, if the United States had asked him to put whatever assets there, his response was, well, I was not asked. Then recently, what did he say? Now he has elections this year, so he has to be careful. So what did he say? Well, recently, if the Prime Minister of Grenada says yes or no, he'll support either yes or no. Now, if I was the Prime Minister of Grenada, and I'm telling you, and you know, I will say yes without hesitation. Am I am not. I am thinking of Grenada. I'm thinking of the country. I'm not thinking of winning the elections. I'm thinking of the people and the implications for Grenada and Grenadians, whether they say no or yes. Now, I am aware that all the warships, when the United States put billions of dollars and have the largest military apparatus pulled, largest in the world, aircraft carrier coming down to here, it means that they mean business. Okay? And when you look at geopolitical politics of the global, it's all look. Trump, Trump and the president or the prime minister of China, they just met nicely, and they concluded a meeting today. It's today or yesterday that they're gonna make a deal, and it got a trade, and they shook hands, and Trump said how nice Mr. Shipping is, and vice versa. Now, do you think that the China is the biggest threat down here to the United States? Not Russia, not Russia, but they both have military assets in Venezuela. But would they think, unless something happened, would they think they will ever threaten the United States down here, particularly the move that the United States are making? There would be no war. What you have, what you have is strategies of prevention of war and control of the narcotics and control of democracy, which is not in truth and in fact adhered to in Venezuela this time. It is both. Trinidad and Tobago has already had and agreed to certain assets, not military, but it can be used for surveillance of the waters of this part of the Caribbean because a lot of drugs do pass through, and most of the Grenadian fishermen, let's put it this way, whether it's the Grenadian fishermen or the Trinidadian fishermen, whether they're drugged or they're fishing, when they go into Venezuelan waters, most of them don't come back. They are killed or they are taken into the Venezuelan jail. Yeah? How many Venezuelans do we have in our jail? And they go into the waters? How many Venezuelans do they have in the Trinidad and Tobago jail? Hmm?
Well, I can't say,
Very little.
I did not research the statistics on that, so I cannot say either way
Uh, well, I know I'm asking it
in terms
not,
of that.
no,
And I don't recall.
I'm saying it generally. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
really mean for you to answer. What
Okay,
I'm saying is,
and because I
if
don't
it is
recall
very
a
little,
Grenadian fisherman being currently imprisoned in Venezuela, at least, yeah.
well, whatever it happens, I mean, you look back in history and you'll see what happens. Whether it is a right wing government or left wing government, the Venezuelans have always been a very aggressive, aggressive. And let me
So,
tell you something.
so you are saying that
Society,
so you're saying the loyalties of the Caribbean countries really should be first and foremost with their own survival, and then second with countries like Guyana and Trinidad, who you
yes,
believe are in need of the
yes,
protection of a bigger power such as the United States.
that's right. And the only protection that you could count on is the United States of America, logistically. And then you look at the years, you look at the cultural relationship with the people. Yeah, I mean, I think there were 200 or 300,000 Trinidadians that live in the United States of America, and
But
another two in.
taking a look at here in Grenada, what do you think
Yes,
if our country says yes to the United States? There's been a
yes.
lot of protests, some of it angry, that he should say no, and people get very
I
emotional,
don't think I don't think
very
I don't see a
sentimental.
lot of protests, Calistro. I was asked to go in a protest because I would have support a protest again for the Palestinians to forward.
No, I wasn't speaking strictly about street protests and public protests, but you people's sentiments seem generally to be leaning towards no. The sentiments that have been expressed to me that I've come in contact with. Some people are saying we should say yes as well. There are people on both sides of the coin, including you, thinking yes is the right way to go for the survival and the protection and the interests of Grenada.
Well,
Should we say yes, given your
I said
experience in
you asked me a
politics?
question, and I said I will say yes, and I'm
And
supposed to
okay,
again,
and now
and
I'm
I say
asking,
yes, and I've started to say why. From a military standpoint, who is the superpower? Who is the closest to us? That is one.
and
I also can say that add that you have the United States came as a rescue mission when we had 700 Grenadian United States students in the campus. We have close to 7,000 in the United States. I mean, that is part of their assets. They have to protect them. And more so, it is 25 to 30% of our economy. And most of the tourists come from United States of America. Huh? And including Grenadians who come back, they're tourists. So what are you going to do? Cut your nose, cut off your feet for an ideology because of a President Maduro, who, as far as allegedly concerned, has not won the last election and has been and and look, this is about Grenada, it's about St. Vincent, it's about Trinidad and Tobago and these islands, and I'm quite sure having an idea of what military assets and the technology that the United States do have. And say United States, forget Trump, forget the messenger. He's a bad messenger. That you have, and I know the type of warships they have here, traveling, can put a dome, and it is, on over Trinidad and Tobago, St. Vincent and Grenada for protection of any form of rockets or drones, just as how we have it in Israel.
but
And
there
I'm
are
telling you,
also
part of the people,
Mr. Joseph,
part of it
there
is fear.
are
Part of it is
there are
fear.
also political domestic considerations. We're looking at the fallout of the thing, all right? And I asked you if you had to make the decision, what you'd say. You said yes, and you've advanced some very strong reasons why. Those are reasons I am sure our own Prime Minister is considering as he considers this
Well,
demand that has been made.
I will hope so. I
Well,
would say,
we would
I
hope so.
don't, I am not,
However,
I'm an honorary member of the National Democratic Congress. I'm not an officer. I am speaking as civil society Ken Joseph, a citizen without any interest of getting in front of politics or
in
getting votes.
politics. I
And
understand
if,
that. But
but if I was
do
a
you
prime
believe saying
minister,
yes? Do you believe
country first
with an
before party.
election
Country first
with
before
an
party.
election less than 2 years away? Do you believe that saying yes can have any political fallout for the National Democratic Congress administration and Dick Mitchell himself?
I would not hesitate if I was to say I would not. I mean, I think it's a issue of the country first, not the party in power. Political. This has nothing to do. This is a national issue that the present party in government should be discussing with the opposition. This is not about party and power and election. This is a long term issue, and this time the United States would not leave. They would not leave now. It's not like, I speak to Sparrow regularly. He's my good friend. I say, Sparrow boy, at this time, it's not a Yankee gone and Sparrow take over. No, He said, well, you're a younger person than me, so you better take over. I said, what? When you see this sort of artillery that come down, that has been here, when you look jointly with the amount of drugs that comes through, this is not just about Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean. This is about the United States showing their might with the whole of the Latin American, South American countries. They are sending a message that this is their frontier and backyard, not these little islands here, but we will benefit from the protection. And they're sending a message loud and clear. Look, Putin, this is what we have left with with the guy from Ukraine. The European community will handle that. So Trump forgets that he has already sent his message to Putin that he's leaving that to Europe. He has already sent his message and he's finished with Palestine. He has already sent his message to Netanyahu, whether he like it or not. Bye bye, bye bye. And he has told the Arab that you the Arab people are going to look after the rebuilding of Palestine. America is not going to be part of that. And if
Well,
Putin, if it does not get locked up,
we never expected America to be part of that, nor the Israelis, anyhow. So
but
there's no
anyhow,
surprise
so
there.
I'm saying is that America has cleared the slate of the military slate of any direct involvement, whether it's in the Arab world or whether more involvement in the European the situation between Putin and he already made
And now have set their sights on the southern Caribbean
ah
and South Central Latin America.
and if they set aside,
So
who is going to?
they've declared a new zone of conflict.
I don't think that they're doing something. It's called very heavy gun boat diplomacy.
But
It is called gun because I'm telling you, they will not be challenged. The Russians would not be the Russians would
you are
not challenge them.
saying you are
The
saying this.
Chinese would not challenge them. They both know better. And let me put it a different way. Trinidad and Tobago, Kamala Prasad Bissessa is Hindu. Hmm? You look at Guyana. You look at Guyana. Ifram Ali has said nothing, but he wants the United States because Venezuela wants to take over more than half of Guyana's oil.
Two
He said
thirds, I
nothing,
think.
but you know where he stands. And he is also Hindu. And I'm quite sure Kamala Prasad and Imran Ali is speaking to Moodoo in India because India is what? The largest democracy in the world and population, $1.4 million, 1.4 million people. Who do you think? Who do you think? And they have nuclear weapons. Do you think they will support Maduro or the Venezuelans? No. They will support Kamala. They will support Diana.
And so certainly we expect it I mean, Grenada certainly, and the Prime Minister definitely does not have an easy decision
I
to
look at
make.
world politics, and that's what
But
that's
you,
what, yes, good.
we are running out of time though, on this segment. We would definitely have to have you back to go into details on Kent Joseph, the businessman, the politician, the historian, on
So my
another
so
segment dedicated to you.
my answer is yes,
But you,
wholeheartedly. Welcome, United States of America. Even if they want to put military assets, they have done it before, or whatever surveillance asset, bring it come.
but certainly,
Bring it come.
certainly, would you, if you were making the decision, would you also negotiate for certain
Of
benefits
course,
for the country?
because Trump negotiate. I will negotiate to pay off the oil or the so-called oil debts by Petrocarib. I will negotiate not only on behalf of Grenada, I will negotiate on behalf of St. Vincent. I will join hands with Camilla precisely, even though she called Trinidad and Tobago ATM machine. But the fact is that we rely a lot throughout the Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean, and Trinidad and Tobago for for a lot of goods and to sell a lot of produce. So there are a lot of areas of that is in the positive for Grenada to link hands and feet and head with the government of Trinidad and Tobago.
And what about the United States? Apart from asking them to pay off Petrocarib debts, what else should be the ask if our government decides
Uh,
to say
well, we will.
yes? We do
Well,
we cannot say yes empty-handed. What else do we ask for?
let me put it this way: there was a young man called Hubert Blaze who died at a younger age, but he was in a wheelchair, almost like I am. One of the things he did not do is push hard enough. He
Mm.
said to get enough support from the United States of America under Reagan. I'm quite sure we should learn from that experience. Once we have to cooperate with the United States of America, we negotiate. And as I said before, what we have in the benefit, we have a university students that could either have campus that not going anywhere, but it can go anywhere if we say no. If we say no, the United States could put pressure in several different areas for us being, it's a test, you know. It's a test to find out
Although
whether
I don't believe U.S. citizens have controlling interests. I believe there was some sort of changing of hands. But I do recall, I mean, what the point you're making about Howard Blaze, and when asked what he wanted, I'm told he said, just take the Cubans and leave. And that may have been the worst moment of representation of this nation that we have ever seen or may ever see
But I'll
again.
just say one thing about the Cubans. The Cubans are very nice people. The Cubans are different, quite different culturally from the Venezuelans. Quite a different culture. And I can say that from my own personal experience. Okay? But we
All right.
also remember that there are 120,000 Venezuelans who fled from Maduro in Trinidad and Tobago, and another 3 or 4 million who have fled from Venezuela all over. And a
All over
lot
the
of them are
world.
getting involved in drugs
All right.
for a living. So you have to look at it in a holistic manner. It's not an easy decision, but for me, it's an easy decision. It would have been.
Well, for those who believe that it is a war on drugs and not regime change, yes, would make sense. But for those who believe that it is an
It is
attempt
both.
to, it is an
It,
attempt to grab
look,
power in Venezuela, then you look at it
not
from
that,
a different way.
I
But
don't agree. I
but
don't agree.
we are out of time. It was such an interesting discussion. I wish we had more time that we could continue this conversation. I want to thank you so much, Kent Joseph,
Thank you very
former
much, Sally.
politician, retired politician, former member of Grenada's parliament in the upper house, a junior founding member. You said you want to be referred to as junior founding
Stalwart.
member of the National Democratic Congress,
And
certainly one
and
of
a
the
former member of
stalwarts,
the MPTM, a former member
member of the
of the
Morris Bishop
MPTM.
Patriotic Movement, and certainly a stalwart of the incumbent party, the National Democratic Congress. And most importantly, I found that to be most important, chair of the leadership committee, that you led the committee that searched for a leader for the party, and
Myself and a
eventually
good friend of mine,
that search
Glenn
led you
Noel.
to Dickon
Glenn
Mitchell.
Noel, the present ambassador in Cuba.
Ambassador Glenn Noel, who is now based
My
in
good
Havana.
friend.
Thank you so very much for joining me on The Narrative. Ken Joseph, it was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you. This is The Narrative. I'm your storyteller, Callistra Farrier. Well, when we come back, I will give my opinion on the formation and the announcement by Peter David that he is finally launching the long-awaited movement. My 2 pence halfpenny is up next.
Show them the spin like